Millionaire deaf woman was being ignored in a cafe until a single father took an attitude that I don't understand. Carla's voice cut through the murmur of the cafe between lines like a knife. You have to write it down or wait until I have time. Valerie Anderson felt the heat rising up her neck. Her hands moved with more insistence. Each sign in ASL more pronounced than the last, but the waitress had already turned her back, cleaning the coffee machine as if she were invisible. No, not again, thought Valerie, clenching her fists inside the pockets of her immaculate white blazer. Not here, not today. She needed that coffee. The meeting with the Japanese investors was in 20 minutes, right at the corner table she had reserved. She needed to be calm, focused, to be the CEO who moved millions with a signature. Not the deaf woman who couldn't even order a damn cappuccino. Daddy, a high-pitched little voice broke her spiral of frustration. Daddy, that lady needs help. Valerie turned slightly. A blonde girl about 8 years old with a pink backpack decorated with butterflies was tugging at the sleeve of a man organizing books on the nearby shelves. The man wore a denim apron over a grey shirt, dark hair slightly disheveled, and that expression of tiredness that only parents who do everything alone have. Sophie, I'm busy, he murmured without looking up from the Garcia Marquez copies he was arranging alphabetically. But Daddy, the girl insisted louder now, pointing toward Valerie. They're ignoring her, and she's sad. Do something. Ryan Cooper finally looked up. His brown eyes met Valerie's for a second that stretched like honey, and something in his expression changed. He set the books down on the side table with a thud and walked to the counter with long, decisive steps. Carly, his voice had an edge that Valerie hadn't heard before. Go to the back room. What? But there are customers now. The waitress opened her mouth to protest, saw her boss's look, and disappeared through the back door muttering something unintelligible. Ryan turned to Valerie and then did something she didn't expect. His hands rose fluidly and naturally, forming ASL signs with a precision that left her stunned. Sorry for the wait. Welcome to Between Lines. What can I get you today? Valerie blinked once, twice. The cafe noise, the conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, the soft jazz in the background, faded into absolute silence in her head. He's signing. He's signing. Her hands moved before her brain could fully process. You know ASL? My wife was a special education teacher, he replied with a small, sad smile. She taught me. So, what would you like? Our cappuccino is pretty good, though the owner is a bit picky about the milk temperature. Valerie let out a laugh, a real laugh, not the polite, controlled one she used in boardrooms. Her hands trembled slightly as she signed, Cappuccino, then, with cinnamon, if you have it. We do. Have a seat. I'll bring it to you. But Valerie couldn't move. She was rooted to the worn wooden floor, watching this man, this complete stranger, prepare her coffee with efficient, sure movements. He poured the milk carefully, drew a perfect leaf in the foam. He sprinkled the cinnamon with surgical precision. Is she your girlfriend? Asked Sophie, materializing next to Valerie with the unfiltered curiosity of children. Valerie looked down at the girl, who was watching her with huge, bright eyes. She read her lips easily. No, sweetie, I just met your dad. Oh, Sophie considered this for a moment, rocking on her heels. He's sad because Mom went to heaven 3 years ago, but he says he's fine. I think he's lying. Valerie's heart tightened. 3 years widowed. Ryan arrived with the cappuccino, the foam leaf intact. Their eyes met again, and this time Valerie saw more. The slight dark circles, the worry wrinkles on his forehead, the ring hanging from a silver chain under his shirt. Thanks, she signed, taking the cup. The heat burned her palms, anchoring her to the moment. You're welcome, and I'm really sorry about how Carly treated you. It's no excuse, but I'll talk to her. Valerie nodded, unable to look away. This man had just done something that no one, not her multimillionaire investors, not her loyal employees, not the men who had courted her for her bank account had done. He had seen her. Valerie. Her assistant Marina's shrill voice pierced the bubble. The Tokyo folks are on the phone. They've been waiting 10 minutes. Reality hit her like cold water. She turned, saw Marina by the entrance waving her phone with panic in her eyes. Her reserved table, the meeting, the millions at stake. She looked back. Ryan was watching her with an indecipherable expression, Sophie hanging from his arm like a curious koala. Her hands moved almost on their own. I have to go. Work. Of course. The coffee's on the house, right? I insist. Valerie wanted to say something more. She wanted to ask his name, though she had heard it when the girl called him. She wanted to ask why he knew ASL so fluently, why his eyes had that familiar sadness she recognized in her own mirror. Instead, she nodded, took her coffee, and walked to her table, where Marina had already set up the iPad and documents. The meeting lasted 45 minutes. Valerie negotiated in English, smiled at the appropriate moments. She used her iPad to follow the conversation when the video connection got tricky. She closed the deal with a digital signature and a virtual handshake, but her eyes kept drifting to the counter. Ryan was making coffees, exchanging words with customers, checking on Sophie every few minutes to make sure she was doing her homework. He moved with the tired efficiency of someone who had been juggling too many things for too long. When the investors disconnected, Valerie closed the iPad slowly. Marina was already packing. "We have to go," said Marina. "The call with Singapore is in 15 minutes and with traffic in the Mission District. Wait." Valerie stood, leaving her empty cup. She walked to the counter. Ryan was cleaning the machine. Sophie was coloring in her notebook with her tongue sticking out in concentration. When he looked up, something sparked in the air between them. "Thanks," Valerie signed, "for everything. You don't have to thank me. I just did the right thing. Not many people do the right thing." Ryan held her gaze, and Valerie had the dizzying sensation of being on the edge of something huge, something that could change everything if she dared to jump. "Valerie, really?" Marina called from the door. Valerie forced herself to break eye contact. Her hands moved one last time. "I'll be back." A slow, genuine smile transformed Ryan's face. "I'll be here." Valerie left the cafe into the golden San Francisco afternoon, the October sun warming her skin, the taste of cinnamon still on her tongue, and for the first time in years, she felt something dangerous blooming in her chest. Hope. Valerie returned 3 days later. It wasn't a conscious decision. Simply on Wednesday morning, when her driver asked where to go, her lips formed the words, "Between Lines Cafe in the Mission." The man blinked. Her office was in the financial district, 20 minutes in the opposite direction, but he nodded and turned the Mercedes toward the narrow streets of the bohemian neighborhood. Ryan looked up when the doorbell rang. Recognition crossed his face like dawn, followed by something warmer that made Valerie's stomach flip inexplicably. "You came back," he signed, and there was genuine surprise in his hands. "I said I would. People say a lot of things." Touché. This time Valerie sat at the bar instead of a table. She watched Ryan prepare her cappuccino. He already knew her order by heart, with movements that seemed more relaxed than on Monday. Or maybe it was her who felt more relaxed. "Your coffee is good?" she said aloud, testing her voice, something she rarely did with strangers. Ryan smiled, responding in signs. "Better than the Starbucks at your office." "Infinitely." She paused. "How do you know there's a Starbucks at my office? Your assistant mentioned it the other day. We can't be late. Valerie has her cappuccino waiting at the office." Valerie let out a laugh. "Marina is efficient, sometimes too much." Sophie burst in from the book section, dragging a backpack that seemed to weigh more than her. Her eyes lit up when she saw Valerie. "You came back," she shouted, and then, more shyly, "Can I show you my drawings?" For the next hour, as the cafe filled and emptied with morning customers, Valerie found herself in a world completely alien to her own. Sophie showed her every drawing in her notebook. Castles, princesses, a dog that Dad promised we'd have someday, with a detailed narrative that required all her lip-reading concentration. Ryan worked, but his eyes kept returning to them constantly. Valerie noticed it in her peripheral vision, that constant pull of attention. "I have to open the bookstore," Ryan said finally, pointing to the book section. "Would you like?" He didn't finish the sentence, but Valerie understood the invitation. The bookstore was small but carefully curated. Dark wooden shelves reached the ceiling, rolling ladders in every corner. It smelled of old paper, coffee, and something softer, the kind that Valerie couldn't identify. "My wife designed this," Ryan signed, touching one of the shelves with reverence. Every section. She believed books should be organized by emotion, not genre. Valerie looked closer. Indeed. for sad days, for when you need courage, for falling in love with the world again. She was wise, she signed. She was. Ryan touched the chain around his neck unconsciously. Claire passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. It was quick. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who understood the weight of unspoken words. "I'm sorry," Valerie signed finally. "Me too. For her, for Sophie, for me." He forced a smile. "And you? What does a woman who closes million-dollar deals do in my little cafe?" Valerie tensed. "I Googled you. Valerie Anderson, CEO of Access Tech, the visionary deaf woman revolutionizing inclusive technology." The article in the New York Times was pretty impressive. The old fear twisted in her stomach. Now came the part where he behaved differently, more careful or worse, more interested for the wrong reasons. But Ryan just asked, why accessible technology? And so, among shelves that promised courage, Valerie told him everything. The 47 job interviews where recruiters saw her deafness before her degree from Stanford. The investor who suggested she hire a face to represent the company. The disastrous dates with men who saw her millions or her disability, never just her. "I built Access Tech because I was tired of begging for a seat at tables where I should have been from the start," she finished. "Now I have my own table, but it's lonely." Ryan watched her with an intensity that made her feel naked and safe at the same time. "You don't have to be alone," he signed softly. Before Valerie could respond, the bell rang violently. Roderick Taylor entered like a whirlwind of grey suit and expensive cologne, his eyes scanning the cafe with barely concealed disdain. "Valerie." His voice echoed through the space. "I've been looking for you all over San Francisco." And so her two worlds collided. Roderick didn't wait for a response. His eyes swept the cafe with the precision of an appraiser calculating losses, and Valerie knew exactly what he saw. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, a coffee machine at least 10 years old, everything opposite to the minimalist glass and steel offices of Access Tech. "This is your new workspace." Roderick almost spat the words, completely ignoring Ryan, who had frozen next to the shelves. Valerie felt rage rising in her throat. She signed with sharp movements. "Roderick, this isn't the time. You've cancelled 3 meetings this week," he continued aloud, pulling out his phone. "The Frankfurt investors are threatening to pull out if we don't present the new prototypes before December. And you're here in this," he gestured vaguely, "quaint establishment." "Careful." Ryan's voice was soft, but it had a steel edge. "This quaint establishment is my life." Roderick looked at him really for the first time, sizing him up from head to toe. The coffee-stained apron, the calloused hands, the 2-day beard, his lip curled. "Ah, the charming owner." He turned back to Valerie. "Can we talk in private?" "No," Valerie signed. "Valerie, be reasonable." I said no. Her hands shook with fury. "If you have something to say it here or leave." Roderick's face hardened, but he lowered his voice. "Not enough." "Fine." The folks at Zik specifically asked why our CEO is spending time in neighborhood cafes instead of strategic meetings. TechCrunch published an article questioning your focus, and your mother called, worried because you're not answering her messages. Every word was a calculated stab. Valerie knew what Roderick was doing. She had seen him use these tactics in boardrooms, dismantling opponents with surgical precision, but never against her. "You know what I told them," Roderick continued, "that you were exploring new market opportunities, because the alternative," he leaned in, lowering his voice further, "is admitting you're getting distracted by this." He shot a meaningful glance toward Ryan. The silence that followed was so thick Valerie could feel it pressing against her skin. Sophie had stopped coloring, her huge eyes moving between the adults. 2 customers at a nearby table were staring openly. Ryan stepped forward, placing himself next to Valerie. He didn't touch her, but his presence was solid, unshakable. "I think Miss Anderson asked you to leave," he said with a dangerous calm. Roderick let out a dry laugh. "And who are you to Roderick?" Valerie's voice cut the air like breaking glass. "Leave now." Something in her tone, or perhaps in her expression, made Roderick step back. He adjusted his tie, recomposing his mask of professionalism. "Very well, but the board meets Friday. They expect to see you there, presentable and focused." He paused at the door. "And Valerie, remember who was with you from the beginning, who believed in you when no one else did." The door closed with a definitive slam. Valerie stood frozen, her nails digging into her palms. The cafe had returned to its normal murmur, but she felt all eyes on her. "I'm sorry," she signed to Ryan, unable to meet his eyes. "You shouldn't have witnessed that." "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do." She finally looked at him, and the pain in her chest intensified, seeing the understanding in his brown eyes. "Roderick is right. I have a company to run, investors to keep happy, a reputation to protect, and you have this, your cafe, your daughter, your life. We're from completely different worlds." Ryan opened his mouth, but Valerie was already picking up her bag. "Don't go." Sophie ran to her, hugging her leg with desperate force. "Please don't go like Mom." Valerie's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She knelt, wiping the girl's tears with trembling fingers. "Sweetie, I'm not," her voice broke. She looked at Ryan over Sophie's head. He held her gaze, and in his eyes, she saw everything neither of them was saying. The longing, the fear, the impossibility of it all. Valerie kissed Sophie's forehead and stood. She left the cafe without looking back, because she knew if she did, she wouldn't have the strength to go. 4 days. 4 days without seeing Valerie, and Ryan felt like an idiot for counting. Sophie asked about her constantly. "When is Valerie coming back? Did we make her mad? Is it because I cried?" Each question was a knife in Ryan's chest. "She did the right thing," he said aloud while organizing inventory in the storage room. "She has an important life. We're just what? A distraction? A poverty tourism experiment? No, that was unfair." He had seen something real in Valerie's eyes, something scared and hopeful at once, something he felt too. On Thursday night, Sophie woke up burning with fever. "Daddy," she whispered, her forehead beaded with sweat. "Everything hurts." The thermometer read 102.6 degrees. Panic gripped Ryan with icy claws. "Ibuprofen, cool cloths, midnight call to the pediatrician. It's viral, Mr. Cooper. Keep her hydrated and monitored. If it hits 104, go to the ER." Ryan spent the night awake, changing cloths, taking her temperature every hour, watching his little daughter shiver under 3 blankets. His hands shook every time he touched her burning forehead. Claire would know what to do, he thought, and the thought came with less pain than usual, just soft nostalgia. At 5 a.m., while Sophie slept restlessly, Ryan found himself pulling out his phone. Valerie's message was still there from Tuesday. "Thanks for the book recommendation." His fingers moved before his brain could stop them. "Sophie's sick. High fever. I'm scared." He deleted it. Too pathetic. Too needy. He wrote, "Hey, how are you?" Deleted that too. Finally, he put the phone down and stared at his daughter, feeling completely alone. Valerie was in her office when the message came. Not from Ryan, from Carly, the cafe waitress. "I know it's none of my business, but Ryan closed the cafe. Sophie's really sick and he's alone. Thought you'd want to know." His address, Valencia Street, 284, apt 3 amperes. Valerie's heart stopped. She looked at her computer screen full of spreadsheets and investment proposals. She looked at Roderick across the conference room gesturing about market projections. And then she stood up. "Where are you going?" asked Roderick. "We have to finish this before. There's an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" Valerie looked at him directly. "The kind that matters more than this meeting." And she left. Ryan opened the door expecting the doctor. Instead, he found Valerie with pharmacy bags and a face full of worry. "How did you know?" "Carly texted me." "Can I come in?" Ryan stepped back, stunned. His apartment was small, messy, nothing like what Valerie must be used to. Toys on the floor, dishes in the sink, unfolded laundry on the couch. She didn't care. Valerie went straight to the bedroom where Sophie slept. She touched her forehead, checked the thermometer, and started pulling medications from the bags with practiced efficiency. "My brother has 3 kids," she signed, seeing the question in Ryan's eyes. "I learned out of necessity." The next hours blurred into a routine, medicine every 4 hours, soup that Valerie made quietly with cold compresses. Ryan fell asleep on the couch around 3 p.m., exhausted. He woke 2 hours later and found Valerie sitting next to Sophie, reading her a story in signs. His daughter was smiling weakly, the fever finally dropping. Something in his chest broke and mended at the same time. That night, with Sophie sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, Ryan and Valerie sat in the small kitchen. She had made tea, moving through his space as if she'd always been there. "Why did you come?" asked Ryan. Valerie looked down at her cup. Her hands moved slowly, as if each sign cost her. "Because when Carly texted me, nothing else mattered. Not the meeting, not Roderick, not the investors. Just that you needed help and I could give it. Valerie, I know what you're going to say, that we're from different worlds, that I can't offer you what you're used to. But Ryan," her eyes shone, "in my world, no one really sees me. I'm a figure, a diversity symbol, an overcoming story. With you, I'm just me." Ryan reached his hand across the table. Valerie took it, their fingers intertwining naturally. "I don't have wealth," he signed with his free hand. "I have café debts, a daughter who needs stability, and I'm still learning to live without Claire. And if I said that's enough, that you two are enough." Ryan stood, went around the table, and knelt in front of her. He cupped her face in his hands, searching her eyes. "Are you sure?" he asked aloud, needing her to read not just his lips, but his soul. Valerie nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks, and Ryan kissed her. It was soft, tentative, a question and an answer. It tasted of tea and hope and new beginnings. When they parted, both were crying. From the bedroom, Sophie's little voice asked, "Daddy, is Valerie staying now?" They looked at each other and smiled. "Yes," Valerie signed. "I'm staying." The emergency board meeting was called for Monday at 9 a.m. Valerie entered the conference room with Ryan at her side, not hidden, not waiting outside. At her side, Roderick paled. The 5 board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Valerie," began the chairman, Mr. Martin Castello, with a careful voice, "we appreciate your commitment to transparency, but this is an executive meeting. Your companion, Ryan Cooper, is the owner of Between Lines Café, and my partner, Valerie, signed while speaking aloud, and he's staying." Roderick stood abruptly. "This is completely inappropriate. Valerie, your personal life is affecting your professional judgment. You've cancelled meetings, ignored investors, and frankly, your reputation." "My reputation," Valerie interrupted. Her voice, clear and firm, was built on being authentic. "I created Access Tech because the corporate world told me I didn't belong there for being deaf. And now you're telling me I don't belong because I fell in love with an honest man who sees me as an equal." Silence. "If this board believes my value as CEO diminishes because I found personal happiness," she continued, looking each member directly in the eye, "then you never understood what this company represents. Access Tech exists to show that everyone deserves a seat at any table. If I can't live those values, what message are we sending?" Elena Vidal, the HR director, and the only other woman on the board, began to clap slowly. The CTO joined. Then, Mr. Martin. Roderick remained seated, his face a mask of contained fury. "Then I suppose my resignation is accepted," Roderick said coldly. Valerie began. "You haven't made your priorities clear," he gathered his portfolio. "I hope your charity project is worth it when the investors pull out." He left, slamming the door. Ryan touched Valerie's shoulder gently. "Are you okay?" "Better than okay. I'm free." That night, Ryan took Valerie to the cemetery in Colma. Claire's grave was simple, grey granite with fresh flowers that Ryan changed every week. He knelt, touching the stone tenderly. "Claire," he spoke aloud so Valerie could read his lips, "there's someone I want you to meet." Valerie knelt beside him, her heart pounding. "This is Valerie. She's extraordinary, smart, brave, beautiful. She makes Sophie smile again, makes me feel like I can breathe again." His voice broke. "And I felt so guilty about that, as if loving you meant I couldn't love her." Valerie took his hand. "But I think I understand now," Ryan continued, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Love doesn't replace love, it multiplies. You taught me to love deeply, and that gift doesn't go away just because you're gone. It lets me love again." He kissed her fingers and touched the headstone. "Thank you, my love, for Sophie, for teaching me ASL, for showing me the world is bigger than I thought. You'll always be part of us." He stood, wiping his tears, and looked at Valerie. "I'm ready," he signed, "ready to build something new with you." Valerie kissed him right there among the graves and cypresses, as the San Francisco sun set in golden tones. 3 months later, Between Lines Cafe reopened with a small ceremony. The new plaque by the door read, "Between Lines Cafe, inclusive space, in memory of Claire Cooper, who believed everyone deserves to be heard." Inside, the renovations were subtle but significant. Screens with visual menus, tables with QR codes for ordering in ASL, improved lighting to facilitate lip reading. Access Tech had donated technology not as charity, but as an investment in their pilot commercial accessibility program. Sophie, in a small apron matching her father's, taught basic signs to new customers. "Look, this is how you say welcome." Ryan made coffees alongside Valerie, who had reduced her executive schedule to 4 days a week. They worked in perfect sync, communicating in a mix of signs, glances, and knowing smiles. Carly, now coordinator of the new ASL training program, welcomed a group of college students interested in learning. On the wall, 2 framed photos. One of Claire holding baby Sophie, smiling radiantly. Another of Ryan, Valerie, and Sophie on reopening day, forming their own constellation of love. It wasn't replacement, it was continuity. "Happy?" asked Ryan aloud. Valerie set down the tray, went around the counter, and kissed him in front of all the customers, who applauded wholeheartedly. She signed, and for the first time in years, both meant it. 1 year later, the June sun streamed through the windows of Between Lines Cafe, illuminating lazy dust motes in the air. It was Saturday morning, and the place was full of life and conversations, some aloud, many in signs, all equally valid. Valerie was behind the counter, hair in a practical ponytail, wearing a simple cafe t-shirt instead of her old designer suits. She handled the ordering system Access Tech had developed specifically for small businesses, a tablet with visual interface, voice-to-text options, and automatic ASL translation. 1 oat milk latte and 2 croissants for table 5, she signed to Ryan, who was already preparing the order before she finished. After a year, they moved like one person. Sophie, now 9, sat at her table by the window, fully bilingual in English and ASL. A group of neighborhood kids surrounded her as she taught them signs with the patience of someone 3 times her age. "No, look, this is friend." Her small hands formed the signs precisely. "And this is thanks. You always have to say thanks." On the wall, the 2 framed photos had been joined by a third. Ryan and Valerie's civil wedding 3 months ago in Golden Gate Park. Sophie had been the flower girl in a pink dress. She chose herself, and a small bouquet she refused to let go of during the entire ceremony. It hadn't been a big wedding, just close family, neighborhood friends, some Access Tech employees. Mr. Martin attended and toasted with tears in his eyes. Roderick sent a gift, an Italian luxury coffee maker, no note, and that was as close to an apology as he'd offer. "Daddy, Valerie." Sophie ran to them, her new students following like ducklings. "Marco wants to know if he can come to Tuesday classes. Is there space?" Ryan looked at Valerie, who checked her tablet. "There's a wait list, but we can open a new group," she signed. "Then we open a new group," Ryan replied with a smile. The community ASL classes, which started as a small pilot project, now had 3 levels and 50 regular students. Carly coordinated everything from a small office on the 2nd floor that used to be storage. Access Tech had documented the program as a case study. Other cafes in San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles were replicating the model. Valerie was still CEO, that would never change, but now she worked from home 2 days a week, from the apartment the 3 shared in the Mission, just a 5-minute walk from the cafe. The apartment still had Sophie's room full of drawings and books, and now it had Valerie's study with 2 screens and a street view, and the living room with photos of Claire next to new ones of the 3, and the balcony where they had Sunday breakfasts, sometimes with Ryan's mother, who came from Los Angeles, getting better at basic ASL. Time to close for family lunch, Ryan announced at 2 p.m. It was their sacred ritual, closing the cafe Saturday afternoons to eat together. Sometimes just the 3 of them, sometimes with friends, but always together. While cleaning, Bento, the golden retriever they finally adopted, napped under a table, his tail thumping the floor occasionally in doggy dreams. Valerie paused mid-wiping a table, watching the scene. Ryan explaining something to Sophie about the coffee machine, both laughing at some private joke, the sun illuminating them like an impressionist painting. Her family. Ryan looked up and caught her staring. He crossed the distance and kissed her softly. "What are you thinking?" he signed. "That love is like this coffee," Valerie replied, her hands moving tenderly. "It doesn't replace what came before. It just adds new layers of flavor, depth, warmth. Claire will always be part of this story, and I have the privilege of writing the next chapters with you." Ryan's eyes welled up. He took her hands and kissed them. "I love you," he said aloud, something he did more frequently, knowing she read both his lips and his heart. "I love you too," Valerie sighed. "And I love you both," Sophie shouted, throwing herself into a hug. "Can we go to the park? Bento needs to run." They laughed, the sound filling the empty cafe like music. They locked the doors of Between Lines Cafe, but the lights stayed on, visible from the street, a silent promise that tomorrow they'd open again, ready to serve coffee, build community, and remind everyone that love in all its forms, languages, and expressions always finds its way between lines, between worlds, between hearts. This story of Valerie and Ryan always moves you. If this tale of love that transcends barriers and prejudices touched your heart, don't forget to leave a comment telling us what moved you most. Was it when Ryan signed with Valerie for the first time, when Sophie asked her not to go, or maybe when he finally allowed himself to love again at Claire's grave? Like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember that true love knows no borders or differences. Every comment, every like, every share helps us keep creating stories that celebrate inclusion, respect, and the courage to love without fear. From what country are you watching us? We'd love to know if you're following from the US, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, or any other corner of the world. Write your city and country in the comments. Building this international community of lovers of good stories is what drives us to keep creating quality content. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories of love, overcoming, and second chances. Your support makes it possible for us to keep sharing these inspiring and emotional stories.